Hi everybody and welcome back. This lesson, and several more to follow, is going to provide you with a high-level overview of Ruby on Rails. We are going to rapidly generate an application using scaffold generators. So some of the magic that you've heard and some of the hype that you've probably heard around Ruby on Rails has been around scaffolding and scaffold generators. In this lesson and those to come, we're going to take a look at scaffolding. After we create this application, the remaining lessons will involve developing a full sample application step by step. So in the next few lessons, we're going to look at scaffolding, but after that, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of generating a production quality application from the ground up, step by step. As we move through these lessons, each new concept will be explained as it's encountered. But for the purpose of this lesson and rapid application development, we'll use scaffolding. As with the forthcoming sample application, this rapid application will consist of users and their associated performance reviews. So we're building a HR system, or the bones of a HR system. The upcoming steps will generate a lot of code. Don't worry about understanding all of it or even any of it right now. We'll get into that as the lessons progress. And the reason I'm telling you now not to worry about understanding all of the code or indeed any of it is because the full sample application later on in the class will develop a similar app as we're going to do now in a few lessons, but from the ground up, step by step. So have a little patience, have a little faith, and try and enjoy it as you go along. Scaffolding only scratches the surface. The point of this entire class is to achieve a deeper understanding of Rails, and that's what we're going to do. But for now, let's look at how we can plan our application. We'll start by generating a new application skeleton using the Rails new command. So as you can see here, nothing unfamiliar, I've got my code editor open, which is Atom, and I've got my terminal open, and I'm in my Rails projects folder. So I've moved out of my Hello World folder, and I'm now in my Rails projects folder. And how do we generate a new application? Well, we simply type Rails underscore 6.0.0 underscore again, new, and what's the name of this application? Rapid app. There we go. Let that run and come back to me in a minute. Okay guys, welcome back. So as you can see, we've just successfully run the Rails new command. Now for those of you in the cloud-based IDE, you can do what we've just done in the same environment as the first application, the first sample app that we built in previous lessons. No need to create a new environment. You may, however, need to refresh the file tree. Now that we have our app created, let's pop it open in Atom. Okay, there we go. First thing we're going to do is take a look at the gem file. You might recognize this as the very first gem file that we had in previous lessons. What I'm going to do now is replace this gem file with an identical gem file that we used in the last lessons. So let me pop that open now. Let me go into my Finder here. So there's my Hello World app. There's my gem file there. Open with Atom. Okay, so here it is here. So it's identical. So let me copy that. Now, as you can see here, in my Rapid app, into my gem file. There we go. And you can do the exact same thing and just don't forget to save it. Again, as you can see here, just like I explained in previous lessons, we have a gem file here, our PostgreSQL, that is only used in production, and we're going to follow that mode into these lessons as well. When we edit our gem file, just like we did the last time, we're going to run bundle. So here in our terminal, bundle install -- without production. So you might remember from the previous lessons, this installs all gem files without any production gems, such as PostgreSQL. So let me hit that. Could not locate gem file, and why could not do that? And I made the same mistake in the previous one, because if I type ls to see what's here, there we go, Rapid app, I need to move into my Rapid app. Now if I run that again, bundle install without production, there we go. Okay, so leave that run. There it is, pretty quick this time. At this time, if you're prompted to run bundle update, feel free to do so. The next step is to put our code under version control. And how do we do that? Well, just like we did previously, we say git init for initialize. So git init. There we go, reinitialized. So what we want to do, we want to add all files. So git add -a. There we go, everything added. Now what we want to say is git commit -m, which means we're going to add a message. And our first message is going to be initialize repository. Close quotation marks, hit enter. There we go, all the files that we just created as part of our new Rails app have been now committed to Git. At this point, we should also go off and create a new repository on GitHub and then push to that new remote repo. So what I'm going to do now is jump into my GitHub account, and just like we did previously, new. So a new repository, and I'm going to call this repository Rapid App. There we go. I'm going to make it private. I'm going to leave the description blank. I'm not going to click anything here. I'm just going to click Create Repository. There we go. So you should be used to what's coming up here. Make sure you have HTTPS selected. Then you want to take these two lines here. So copy them. Back to our terminal. Paste them in. If you're on Windows or in the Cloud IDE, the steps are all the exact same. Everything is the same. So paste them in and hit enter. Okay, there we go. So a new master branch has been created. Finally, to push up, we use git push. Everything up to date. Okay, there we go. Let me go back in here now to GitHub. Let me check my repositories. Rapid App. And look at that. All my files have been pushed up. Excellent. So far so good. And planning our new application is going to plan. Excuse the pun. Okay guys, now that we have our code under version control and our code pushed up to GitHub, we're going to do something that we did in previous lessons, which is deploy now to Heroku. So even though it's still very early, we're going to deploy. So as I've mentioned before, deploying early and often helps you avoid big problems when you go along later on to deploy. So we're going to do that now. But before we do that, we need to make some changes so that we have something to push up to Heroku to let us know our application is working. But just before we go and do that, we're going to do something else that you should be familiar with, and that is to create a branch on Git so that we can make our changes. So let's go and do that now in our terminal. So let me pop open my terminal again. So let me just clear off this screen to make it a little bit easier. Clear. So what's the first thing we want to do? Well, we want to create a branch. So git checkout -b for branch. And what are we going to call this? Well, we're making a hello world. So let's say create -hello world. There we go. Hit enter on that. Switch to a new branch, create hello world. And how can we confirm that? Simply type git branch. So as you can see here, we've two branches, the master and in green with an asterisk beside it, create hello world. And that symbolizes that we're in that branch. Now what we need to do is we need to edit the files that will give us our hello world application. Back in terminal here, if you remember from previous lessons, into app, into controllers, application controller. Let's add in our function. So def hello. So we're defining a hello function, and we're going to say render HTML : now we put in our string, so hello world, add in an end, and let's save that. There we go, part 1 done. Now we need to tell Rails to route to this string every time we start up our application. And how do we do that? In our config folder here on the left hand side, into the routes file. There we go. So let's add in now the following line. Root application #hello. Save that. There we go. Let's jump back into our terminal and let's check git status. And there we go. So we've modified our application controller file and we've modified our routes file. Perfect. So good so far. Now, what we want to do now is commit this, and we want to commit it with a message. So git commit -a-m. And what's the message we want to say? What we want to say is added hello world string. Nice and simple. Hit enter on that. 2 files changed. Excellent. Now we want to merge this up to our master, and we do that with the following: git checkout master. Cool, we've now switched to our master branch. Now we say git merge. So we're merging our branch that we created previously up into our master. So git merge, what's the branch name we created? We called it create hello world. So far so good. 2 files changed, 4 insertions. That looks good. Now let's delete the topic branch we created. So git branch -d, again the branch name, create hello world. Now if any of this is unfamiliar to you, go back to the starting lessons and refresh there. Or you can just follow along and see how you go. Let me hit enter now. There we go, deleted that branch. Finally, git push. Cool, okay, all that looks good. Let's jump into GitHub to confirm. Let me refresh. Okay, there you go, added hello world string in our config, and in our application as well, added hello world string. For further confirmation, let's fire up our Rails server. And as you know, we do that with the command Rails server. So there it is running now. So if I go back in here to my browser and type in localhost, hello world, perfect. All our changes so far are working. That's great. Now what we want to do is push to Heroku. So let me kill the server here. There we go. Let me clear the screen. Now, in the previous lesson, we set up Heroku and we pushed up a test app. If you hadn't followed along with that, head back there and do that now, because we're going to proceed straight into Heroku. So how do we know that we have Heroku? Well, we type in the following command. So this is just a quick recap. I won't do this every time, but just in case. Heroku version. Let that think about it for a moment. There we go. So I have Heroku installed. Now I want to log into Heroku. And you would have done this again in the previous lesson, setting up a Heroku account. Heroku login -- interactive. Hit enter on that. It's going to ask me for my credentials. Perfect, logged into Heroku. Now I can create a subdomain on the Heroku application to host my code. And how do I do that? Heroku create. Okay, it's created Arcane Oasis 35607. So as I mentioned previously, very, very random names. And finally, we push to Heroku. And how do we do that? Git push Heroku master. Give that a minute to run and come back to me. Okay guys, so here we are back now, and it looks like my deployment to Heroku has been successful. So how do we check that? We simply take the URL that Heroku generated for us, pop that in, and there we go, absolutely perfect, it worked. As you can see here, we have our welcome string, hello world up here. We are in our Heroku generated URL, which means we are live on the web. So all of that is absolutely perfect, and it sets us up great for the next lessons to come, where we're going to create a simple sample app. So what we've done in this lesson is we've created a new Rails application, we've put it under version control, we've pushed our code to GitHub, and then we've pushed our code live onto the internet using Heroku. All of that is excellent, and that's the foundation application that we need for the next few lessons. And as I say, the next few lessons, we're going to build a very simple app. But in the lessons after that application, we're going to build a full-scale production application from the ground up. Immediately after this lesson, we're going to start creating our sample app. And the first step in that is creating a data model. And a data model is a representation of the structure needed by our application. So that can be user data, names, email addresses, and so on. So thanks for making it through this lesson. I hope you did. If you have any problems, reach out to me on the community forum or the FAQ. And thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next lesson.